Chapter 11, the Crucifixion. If there's any aspect of the life of Jesus that has given rise to doubts about whether he really was the Messiah and the divine Son of God, it's the lack of evidence. It is the fact that he was crucified. Already in the 1st century AD, the Apostle Paul could refer to the crucifixion of Christ as a stumbling block to the Jews and folly to the Gentiles. And he gives the Greek words. If you look carefully at the two Greek terms Paul uses here, you can see, and I don't think he spoke Greek, but okay. You can see that we get the English word scandal and moron from them. That has a lot to do with the Catholic Church. In other words, Paul is saying that the very idea of Christ crucified, a crucified Messiah, was scandalous to first century Jews and moronic to ancient pagans, known as Gentiles. That should give you some idea of just how foolish the idea of a crucified Savior really was. The reason, in the 1st century AD, Roman crucifixion was nothing less than the most brutal, most shameful, most despicable way to die that could be imagined. In the words of both Jewish and Roman writers, crucifixion was the most wretched of deaths, the most severe punishment. Stoning's pretty bad too, I don't know. Because Jesus of Nazareth, which God tells you to do over and over, is for little tiny things. Because Jesus of Nazareth met his end on the wood of a Roman cross, the question has to be asked, why was Jesus crucified? What did he do and say that led to his being condemned to death by the Jewish leaders and executed by the Roman authorities? Moreover, if Jesus was divine, how could he have uttered the words, my God, why have you forsaken me? Which is one of the 3 versions of his last words. I think the other is, into your hands I commit my spirit, and the other one is, it is finished. So 3 of the 4 Gospels disagree on Jesus' last words. Is this the kind of thing the divine Son of God would say? Doesn't it sound as if Jesus is despairing at the very end? In short, if you're trying to make the case, and remember, he's admitted, it's the telephone game. Nobody has any idea what his last words were. In short, if you're trying to make the case that, or any of them, Jesus of Nazareth was not only the Messiah, but the divine Son of God, then you have to be able to explain this historical fact and the theological significance of his crucifixion. That's what we'll try to do in this chapter. We'll begin by looking carefully at the reason Jesus was crucified. If we know anything about Jesus of Nazareth, not much, it is that he was put to death by crucifixion. Yeah, that might be one of the few things that's more reasonable to believe. Both the writings of the New Testament and ancient Jewish and Greco-Roman sources like Josephus, Tacitus, and Lucian of Samosata agree that Jesus was executed by the Roman authorities of his day. As a result, many scholars emphasize that any truly historical investigation of the life of Jesus has to be able to explain why, from a historical perspective, he was crucified. As Ehrman notes, this guy loves him, sometimes the popular answers to the question, who was Jesus, don't do justice to the fact of the crucifixion. If Jesus had simply been a great moral teacher, a gentle rabbi, or an itinerant philosopher, they would scarcely have been seen as a threat to the Romans and nailed to the cross. Remember, even in the story, he was up there with 2 other guys who did tiny things. I think one was a thief. Who knows? Great moral teachers were not crucified unless their teachings were considered subversive. I think they crucified whoever they felt like it. This is a great point. Although people nowadays are sometimes tempted to paint Jesus as a great teacher or a harmless rabbi who just wanted everyone to love each other, such caricatures fail as history because they cannot explain how Jesus ended up crucified. In the words of Meyer, one of the most striking things about Jesus was his crucifixion or execution by Rome, a Jesus whose words and deeds would not alienate people, especially powerful people, is not the historical Jesus. Okay. So why was Jesus crucified? Different theories have been put forward over the years. In recent decades, perhaps the most popular explanation is that Jesus' predictions of the destruction of the temple, combined with his overturning of the money changers' tables in the temple, is what ultimately got him killed. Even on Palm Sunday, though, he stole some donkeys, or he told his guys to, so maybe it was a simple thief. According to this theory, it was primarily Jesus' words against the temple that angered the Jewish leaders and led them to arrest him and hand him over to the Roman authorities as a troublemaker. What are we to make of this explanation? At first glance, it seems plausible. For one thing, it's true that Jesus' prophecies about the temple and his act of overturning the tables in the temple played a key role in his being arrested and tried by the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem. One gospel clearly says that after Jesus overturned the money changers' tables, The chief priests and scribes heard it and sought a way to destroy him. Mark 11:18. Moreover, as we'll soon see, Jesus' alleged threat to destroy the temple and in 3 days raise it up again is brought up against him later when he's being questioned by the chief council of Jewish leaders, Mark 14:58. But there's one big problem with the theory that he was crucified because of what he prophesied about the temple. On closer inspection, there's no actual evidence of this, you don't say. According to the first century Gospels, the Jewish leaders do not condemn Jesus because of what he says about the temple. They condemn him to death because of who he claims to be. According to the evidence, Jesus was condemned for blasphemy. Jesus was condemned for blasphemy. In order to see this clearly, we have to look carefully at Jesus' exchange with the high priest Caiaphas in the presence of the council of Jewish leaders known as the Sanhedrin. This episode, which is recorded in all 3 synoptic Gospels, may be the most important evidence in any historical attempt to explain why Jesus was crucified. Consider Mark's account. It's pretty long. Okay. Now the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin sought testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. For many bore false witness against him, and their witness did not agree. And some stood up and bore false witness against him, saying, "We heard him say, 'I will destroy the temple that is made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another not made with hands.' Yet not even so did their testimony agree." Kind of like the 4 Gospels. So, yeah, when these testimonies don't agree, that's evidence against the claims. But when the 4 Gospels disagree with each other, people just overlook it? Clearly just childhood trauma being replayed for years. Alright. Yet not even... Okay. And the high priest stood up in the midst and asked Jesus, "Have you no answer to make? What is it that these men testify against you?" But he was silent.